Great greetings, my dear brothers and sisters. Thank you once again for tuning into our program and being part of our church online as we go into a few things on this Friday evening. It's what we call Friday evening online service. And we thank you once again. And we ask that, because we are now online, as we go online, that you just share the link to others as well within your circle. You never know who might benefit from some of the things that we deal with on this platform. So let's get on with it today. I want to talk about love does it. Love does it. It's a fascinating subject. It's one that is close, I'm sure, to many of us. And we want to draw a text from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter number 13, and actually verse number 13. But you can read to get more context from verse number 8 all the way through to verse number 13 itself. And, we'll be able to connect that way. Maybe let's read from there. Verse number 8, 1 Corinthians chapter number 13. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. And where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. Verse number 11. When I was a child, I talked like a child, and I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain. And this is the key verse that we are going to be using today. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Thank you so much. This is, AJ, you can read, a little bit around the subject in your own spare time. But love is really at the center. It is the front and center of our Christian faith for all of us as believers. And throughout both the Old Testament and the New Testament, we are told, in no uncertain terms, we are really, really instructed that love for God and love for others are genuine expressions of spiritual religion, if you like. That's in the broad sense. And true love begins with God. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever will believe in him, shall have life. And the text says in 1 John chapter 4, verse number 1, it says, we love him because he first loved us. Human love amongst ourselves as people is in response to God's initiating love. It is not something that we begin ourselves, but love begins and in fact ends with God. We don't generate love ourselves. We can only love because we have been loved. And so if you read further on in 1 John 4, between 10 and 11, verse number 10 and 11, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought therefore also to love one another. But this shall all men know. If you continue with that, by this shall all men know. That ye are my disciples, if you do what? If you have love one for another. And therefore, love is not merely a feeling, but a commitment to promote peace, goodwill, and kindness toward all, especially fellow believers. And I often said to people, love is not a verb, but love is not a noun, rather. Love is not something that you do, but love is a verb. We were taught in our elementary schools, the verb is a doing word. And so love is done, it's not said. Love is not just spoken, it's actually demonstrated, it's practiced. Love is not something you say, it is something that you actually do. So to be genuinely Christian is to live by the principle of love every single day, especially within the home front. And that's where I want to zoom in today in terms of love in the home front, and therefore the benefits of having love within the home setup and how that impacts on all of us when we go outside the home. That's really the crux of tonight. If you miss anything else, just understand that. Get the love thing going in the family, get the love thing going in the home front, and then you are sorted when you go out. but you mix that up in the family, you're certainly going to have a tough time on the outside there. When Jesus actually spoke, he really spent, and whatever he did, he spoke out of love, and whatever he did everything from a love perspective. In an atmosphere created by love, each member of the family can find the stimulation and the creative encouragement that makes for true fulfillment in the pursuit of their own dreams. And when there is no love in the home, in the family, then there is no fulfillment or realization of dreams altogether. In other words, in the absence of love in the home, if you can't find love in the home, it's going to be hard for you to find it outside. The responsibility to generate and demonstrate and practice love in the family is incumbent upon each member of the family. All of us have to love one another inside first, within the family setup first. When Jesus spoke of love as being the badge of Christian discipleship in John chapter 13, verse number 34 and 35, he actually was referring to Christian love rather than what people would call romantic love. He was referring to the Calvary kind of love expressed in John chapter 3:16, rather than what the world calls erotic love that's out there. Therefore, while romantic love is one of the essential ingredients for what people describe again as happiness in the marriage, the home that is built on this kind of love alone has its foundation resting on sand. You're resting on sinking sand rather than on solid rock. What you need is the Calvary kind of love to build the home. Why? Because the Calvary kind of love is sacrificial, is selfless, and all those wonderful things. It thinks for others before itself, which is why Jesus went to Calvary for our sake and for us. And so the first and greatest of the commandments that we were given requires each and every one of us that we love God with the totality of our being, according to Matthew 27, verse number 37. Now, love for our neighbors is to be our primary way of life and of relating to them. When you read further on Matthew 22, verse number 39, and the principle of love itself is said to be the royal law by which we are to regulate our lives as the children of God. James chapter 2, verse number 8. A couple of scriptures I'm throwing out to you today for you to be able to actually dig a little bit deeper on your own, in your own time. And in writing to the church at Ephesus, Paul encouraged husbands, and we learn the love thing from all these letters. He wrote and he said, husbands, you are to love your wives, and even as Christ so loved the church, and he gave himself for it. And so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth it and cherisheth it, even as the Lord does so for the church. Ephesians chapter 5, verse number 25 and verses 28 and 29 too. So therefore, my brothers and my sisters, it would appear that if one law were to be selected as a guide for constant use in the home, in order to build a solid home and a secure home, a home where everybody thrives, love, genuine Christian love, then would be, the best law that one would need to apply. Now, let's try to break this down a little bit here, because I think when people talk about the love thing, you can be fluffy about it, but there comes a time you really have to get to the nuts and bolts of the thing itself. So let's get on with it and see whether we can talk about 3-4 things here before we close off today. And the first thing is, I want to suggest something that I call preeminent love in the home. Preeminent. That means that goes before. Preeminent, right? Preeminent. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse number 1, 2, and 3. And in talking about the various expressions of religion, or spiritual religion, as I want to call it, Paul points out that love is an essential driver. Love is the essential motive for everything that we do. It takes love to make both religion, in fact, and life complete. Without love, there is no life there. We all die. We died because of the sins of our forefathers, Adam. But the death and the sacrificial death of Jesus Christ, which was a demonstration of love, we have life. ourselves today. Love is more important than your eloquence. You might speak so fluently, you might be so on point, but if you have no love, your eloquence is meaningless. And love is more important than knowledge, and in fact intellectual achievement, I dare say that, because you can be so intellectually astute, but you have no love, you have no charity. In other words, you are going to rough people. You're going to rough people on the wrong side all the time. You won't even calculate your words or think about what you're about to say before you say it. You're going to say it anyway, and in sometimes off the cuff, and sometimes in the wrong place altogether, and in the wrong way altogether, and then you hurt people, you damage people. You may be saying the right thing, but there's a way to put across even a difficult message in a very palatable way. So you might have all the intelligence in the head, but if there's no love, that intelligence is going to speak and act out of the wrong place altogether. The third thing is love makes faith actually meaningful. There's no way you can say you have faith if you have no love, because for you to actually demonstrate and manifest this substance of faith, you have to love the one in whom you have faith. You have to have the connection there. The fourth thing is love must motivate benevolence. In other words, good deeds, good actions. There is no way you can say you have love when your actions are not good and are not benefiting anyone, and you don't think about anyone else but yourself. Benevolence expresses love that sits within, and if the inside is empty, there is no way benevolence will ever find its way out of your life to somebody else. Now, let's look at the properties of love on the home, in terms of the home front itself. Again, back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, this time verses number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, verses number 4 to 8, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and we want to unpack a little bit and look at the properties of love insofar as the home front is concerned. Then we can understand the output of love being the center pillar, the center column of a home. Now, while romantic love is said to be impossible to define in many ways, because people would say it is a feeling. It is a feeling, isn't it? Paul does an excellent job in terms of setting forth some of the qualities of Christian love, the Calvary kind of love that we are talking about here, both in its negative and also in its positive expression. Love is patient. You are not going to claim to have love if you're impatient with everybody all the time. Love is patient. Patience is one of the most urgently needed qualities in the home front. Just in the home, mom and dad, please be patient with your children as they grow up. Growing up takes time. Growing up is not going to be easy. You also grew up at one time. I also grew up at one time. I need to exercise the same patience that was shown to me by my own parents. I must exercise the same to others. You say, but Pastor, my parents never showed me any patience, and that's why I'm not showing patience to others. Well, two wrongs don't make a right, my brother. Two wrongs don't make a right, my sister. If it starts with anyone in your family, may it start with you. May you be the one to start to be patient with others. If everybody else was running around impatiently, may you be the one to actually start and show the way and chart the path that everybody else after you shall have to follow. And so love is patient. We are called into a walk and a journey of patience. A husband to the wife must be patient, and vice versa. Children must be patient with their parents as they also understand the new generation things of today. And so far as how it relates to life and things in the home front, and children never attain perfection, and parents must be patient, for only time and growth can take care of certain things in our own lives. And without patience with one another, real happiness becomes an impossibility. Thirdly, love is kind. Kindness is a virtue. Patience endures difficulty, while kindness reaches out aggressively to do good. Members of the family must go out of their way. You and your family, your mom, your dad, your children, your cousins, your nephews, everybody in the family, you ought to go out of your way to accommodate each other. First of all, to understand one another. Then you accommodate one another. You become patient with one another, and you show continuous acts of kindness. And the attitude and practice of kindness is actually a requirement for stable and sustainable families out there. Understand me and hear me well, my brothers and my sisters. The home is the place where it is most important that we practice kindness in our own relationships internally. If you cannot show kindness in your internal relationship one with another, don't expect to have a miracle out there. Don't even kneel and pray and fast and say, God, help me to show kindness. Well, the question will be, have you been kind with your brother? Have you been merciful to your own brother inside your own home, inside your own family? Leave alone the church and the community. Start in your home. Start in the home front. Start in the family. Mom and dad, children, all of you, exercise patience one with another. There will be some misunderstanding here and there, but time is the best healer, and it will bring you together. It will bring you to full understanding of one another if only you can be patient one with another. Sometimes some of us find it easier, in fact, to be kinder. If there is a word like that, if it doesn't exist, I've just created it. To be kinder to strangers than our own flesh, than to our own flesh and blood. And that, in my view, is not right. It cannot be right. That as a parent, you love the children of other people, even as a pastor. It can't be right that you love everybody else in the church, that you are patient with everybody else in the church, in your own assembly. You are patient with them, but when you get home with your own children, you are as impatient as anything can ever be. You don't tolerate, you even tell them you don't tolerate, you know what? But you are able to tolerate the foolishness of everybody else who congregate around you, but not that of people in your own home. May we change that perspective and that practice, my dear brothers and sisters, so that we start to practice these things in our own families, in our own homes. And we cannot love strangers more than we love our own people. If I can't buy gifts for my own children, why would it be easy for me to buy gifts for children of other people? It's a question that we have to grapple with, and we have to, sometimes we do these things, subconsciously. You're not even thinking about it, but your children will see that. Your children will see you loving other kids more than them. They will see you do good to other families than you do to your own family. Pastor, you are not just called to be good to your assembly, to the sheep you say, Ramesh. You are not even the shepherd. The shepherd is Jesus Christ. You can't say, well, I'm going to be good to the church, and yet you are as bad as hell when it comes to your own family. That ought to change. If you are like that, my dear fellow yokeman, my dear fellow pastor and minister out there, whether you are a lady or a man, if you can't treat your own family right, stop acting as if you can treat everybody else right. If you're treating everybody else right, when you come home, you become a lion and you're a lamb out there. May you change that. Treat everybody right, especially not just those of the household of faith, but those in your own home. I think I've said enough on this, that love is kind. And let's deal with love is confident. It is the ultimate expression of confidence itself. Christian love, in the Calvary kind of love, is not jealous. Instead of suspecting or surmising, you can always be thinking evil and wickedness about others, particularly your own family. Don't think that they are a failed dump, in your own family, and yet you're praising other people out there. Go out and celebrate your own people. Celebrate your own wife. My brother, celebrate your own husband. My sister, celebrate your own children. Don't be too quick to celebrate the other people out there, but yet in your own family, when somebody does something right, You are the very last person to say, oh, well done. No, be the first one to celebrate one another. It is an impeccable reality that can become a grounding force in the stability and sustainability of our own families. When we see that we appreciate one another, we honor one another inside our own homes and inside our own families. So let's do that with confidence, right? Let's not surmise evil of our own. Love believes the best rather than the worst about others. Jealousy and envy indicate self-love and are a confession of a feeling of inferiority complexes that are bedeviling many of us. True love, in fact, conquers all of that. Again, in the family setting, but the husbands and wives should conduct themselves so as never to shake the confidence of one another or of their companions in their truthfulness and in their integrity. At the same time, Calvary love will always believe the best of everybody else. That's what Calvary love is all about. When people are running somebody down, a member of your family, don't be the one to put the next nail on them. Be the one to actually cover them and cover their shame and give them another chance. Love is well-mannered. Real love inspires one to an attitude of kindness and courtesy that eliminates rudeness. It's amazing how we can be so, toxic and how we can be so rude within our own family settings. And yet outside there, we are known as the most gentle, the most polite. It amazes me. You get into a restaurant, husband and wife, and perhaps you're sitting with other people. It might even be strangers altogether. But let a lady pick a chair and want to sit there, and they see a man running to help the lady to settle herself in the chair. But when it comes to them and their wife, the opposite actually happens. Everybody for himself, and herself, and God for us all. That also ought to change. If you're a brother and you never open the car door for your wife, don't be the one too quick when one day you are having to give a lift to a lady, whether that's coming from church or from work or wherever don't be the very one to be the gentleman outside there who goes and opens the door for somebody else's wife. And when it comes to your wife, you literally just run to your side of the car, get into the car, wait for her to open the door. And you want to be known as a gentleman out there, but not a gentleman in your own home. Can it start? And I'm speaking to myself too. I need to start that within my own family. I need to start practicing that in my own home before I can actually do it on the outside there. This is love being well-mannered. Courtesy in the home is an essential practice, a principle that we gotta do. It is essential as the conduct that ensures good public relations in places that we go to anywhere else. It can work, but let it begin to work in the home front. Husbands and wives should continue to practice the courtesy that caused them to be able to, in fact, win their spouse's hearts during those days of courtship, and that must continue. Love is selfless, not self-centered. The foundation of a successful and an effective family is held together by this thing that is called love. And if it starts in the home, in the family, it will permeate the church, it will permeate the workspaces, the marketplaces, because you're going to carry part of that love from where you are coming from in the family with it wherever you're going there. It has to start there. It can't start from outside and come back on the inside. That one becomes very dangerous when it comes from outside into the inside. It has to come from inside the family so that it then spills over into the rest out there. And therefore, as we grow toward maturity in Christ, this tendency toward being self-centered really should be discarded. So love is selfless. It is not self-centered. Love does not insist on its own way. Christian love, Calvary love itself with the happiness and well-being of others. That's what it focuses on. Selfishness and Christian love are direct opposites. And children are born with a self-centered nature. And as we grow together now, that has to be outgrown and dropped. And some people, however, never grow out of the self-centeredness of early childhood, and therefore you may encounter a selfish individual. When you do that, you must just know that you have encountered somebody that has failed to grow into adulthood, and they are babies in adult bodies. It should not be found to be the practice amongst us. Selfishness is the final analysis has probably caused more homes and more relationships to break up than any other factor that you can imagine or think about. To genuinely love one another, right? Person is to be concerned primarily with that person's happiness or well-being, right? To genuinely love one another. That's what this is all about. You really have to be genuinely concerned about their welfare and their happiness and their well-being. Christian love, Calvary love, does not seek its own way, but instead seeks that which is best for others. Next time you are trying to put your thoughts, your feelings ahead of everybody else, think about this. Love does not position itself way ahead of others all the time. Love is gentle, we know that, and it is not easily irritated and does not harbor resentment. It does not maintain a list of gripes and does not carry a sack full of grudges. Instead, what does it do? Love, Calvary love, meets problems with an attitude of gentleness and kindness and with mercy. That's what Calvary love did for us through Jesus Christ on Calvary. There are difficult days in life that necessitate gentle treatment. That's why you should never assume things about other people. When you see somebody walking with their head down on their late for something, don't just assume that they just did what they did because they wanted to do it. You don't know what they've gone through and what they're currently going through anyway. That's why we are to show charity, we are to show love to everybody at all times without accusing anybody of anything, without any factual basis altogether. Because we understand in this life, people will get disappointed, people will get things wrong, people will find themselves in the vice now and again, and it's human to be impacted and affected by things that are happening around us. Love rejoices and practices righteousness. It rejoices in and practices righteousness. Instead of rejoicing in things that are wrong, love rejoices in doing that which is right within the happy home itself. So this thing that we call life would be meaningless without love and charity. Your church will be meaningless without love and charity, not only to the people that are coming from outside. We are so delighted and so happy to have visitors in our own churches. When they come, we love them, we even feed them. But it's an awkward thing. We actually feed the visitors more than we feed the people that are inside. And I'm not talking about feeding with the word. I'm talking about the tea and coffee, the biscuits, everything else. And when we say, and I know somebody will, maybe some people will take an issue with me, but when the optics matter. When you spend so much time focusing on the visitors, neglecting the people that are in the home, you're creating a problem for yourself for tomorrow. You're creating a problem for yourself for tomorrow. Don't focus on both. Focus on your children that are within the family and focus on those that are also from the outside. Balance these things all together. You can't have an unbalanced approach when you deal with matters of people in the home and those that are coming from outside into the home. Treat them well, whether it is at work, at school, wherever you might be. Just learn to treat everybody right from the basis of a charitable heart, from the basis of love, from the basis of Calvary sacrificial love itself. Love is optimistic. Thinks good and expects good about everybody. It always sees the good in others. It majors on opportunities rather than obstacles, and it cheerfully faces duties rather than measuring on difficulties. Love is determined and love is unlimited. Christian love is not shallow or superficial. Calvary love is not shallow or superficial. It reaches everyone everywhere. It affects everyone everywhere. It is not defined by the mood or the weather or by impulsive resources or anything of the sort. The mind and the will are only partially involved when you talk about Calvary love. There is a firm determination to demonstrate a persistent, unbreakable spirit of goodwill. Love, in my summation, is a permanent principle that is to be practiced. 1 Corinthians 13:8-13, read that again. Christian love, Calvary love is permanent. It is imperishable. It refuses to die and it refuses to fail. This kind of love has began many years ago. It began with God, many moons ago with God, and it will continue with Him throughout eternity. That is the kind of Calvary love that we are called to, my dear brothers and sisters. And a time will come when faith gives way to sight and hope will be realized by achievement. I'll say that again. A time will come when faith gives way to sight and hope is realized by achievement. But even then, as long as the ages roll, love will prevail. And because God has loved us so abundantly, let us therefore determine within our own lives to live more completely by this prevailing law of the kingdom of heaven upon this face of the earth. This is what love does for us. This is what love means for us. This is the kind of Calvary love, that does it all for each and every one of us. May the good Lord bless you as you go out there, show charity. You go out there, show the kind of Calvary love we're talking about. Have a wonderful weekend out there, and may the good Lord give you some precious moment with your family as you recalibrate before the beginning of the new week that lies ahead. But before that, please do take somebody to church on Sunday. If you're in Johannesburg, visit us at the TKT, the King's Tabernacle, at number 105 Louis Botha Avenue, and we'll be delighted to receive you when you visit there. If you're in Nairobi, visit us at the House of Transformation in Nairobi, in Kenya here. You visit us, in Garden Estate in Ruaraka. I will be happy to have you at 9 o'clock sharp on Sunday. I'll see you there at some point in time. Otherwise, we'll see you right on the same place, same time next week, same day. God bless you and God be with you. I wish you all of the very best of heaven as you go into this weekend. God bless you. Amen.